sending someone from your podcast to sign up for an email will always be easier. And that process can be used to sell, to promote, do things later. And it's the path that I highly recommend.
You are listening to the Podcast Report with Paul Colligan. Here's Paul.
Building a mailing list with your podcast. It's the Podcast Report, episode 131. Show notes, links, conversation, and more at thepodcastreport.com/131. Yes, we're back. It wasn't a fluke. I promised this was going to be weekly, and it will, at least for this season. Last week, we looked at the changes to the Apple Podcast app. If you haven't listened to that episode, do head out to thepodcastreport.com/130. This week, we'll be chatting about how to grab a list, how to build the email list from your podcast. It's actually another term you might have heard is setting up a simple funnel. We'll be chatting about that as well. And we are launching the podcast episode funnel tool. You might have saw it last week when I gave you that worksheet, but I've got another giveaway for you this week. It's thepodcastreport.com/131. But before we get into the content, it's the tip of the week. Never name your podcast something that is hard to spell. Not just hard for you to spell, but hard for your potential audience to spell. I mean, think about it. Somebody hears about your podcast. Somebody hears about this great new opportunity to grab content anytime, any place, anywhere. And they go to iTunes or they go to the search engine of their choice and they type in the name of the podcast and they don't know how to spell it. If they don't know how to spell it, well, they might not find you. And if they spell it wrong, they might not find you. And if they just think, oh, I don't know how to spell it, they might not find you. Think about that when you name your podcast. Think about when you name your episodes. Always have a podcast that is easy to spell. Having been in the podcasting game for over a decade, remember, my first book came out before the iPhone did. I am sure of one thing, and this is really important. Building a list with your podcast is the most profitable strategy of podcast monetization out there. There has never been, there will probably never be a more profitable strategy than grabbing a mailing list from your podcast. Now, we've chatted about this on past episodes. We had Ed Dale talk about the free cookie problem. You've heard me chat about this a bunch, but let's get to specifics and let's get to one of the big themes of season 5. We are going to be chatting about this. We are going to be giving the tools, the do's, the do nots, the whole 9 yards. Starts with a story. A associate calls me and says, Paul, the podcast essentially is killing me. My answer? Well, don't do the podcast. I tend to be the realist that way. The response? 85% of the people who participated in $1 million plus launch had downloaded something as a result of the podcast. Now, we don't know, the tracking wasn't in place. Did these people come from the podcast and purchase something? Were these existing customers that found the podcast after they bought something? We don't know the full story, but the fact of the matter is 85% of everybody who had bought had at some time connected with this person through the podcast and gave them their name and email address because this is the tracking they had set up. It is hard to market and sell on a podcast. It's easy to market and sell and promote and monetize on an email list. So you use the podcast to build the email list. Now, a couple things. Number one, let's chat about this. I have built a private Facebook community. It's going to be a test. It might only be season 5. If you're listening to this after season 5 and the link to the community is no longer good, well, that's because the project didn't work. But Facebook's made some changes in communities. And well, gosh darn it, we're going to give it a try. So if you head out to thepodcastreport.com/131, you will see a link to the private community at Facebook. You have to ask to get in, but I'll approve you. Don't worry about it. That's the community. Lists are not just important for the marketing elements, but lists are important for the interest identification that comes from it. You see, if you say sign up for my newsletter, you've got people who are only interested. Well, not only, you've got people who are interested in you. But if you say sign up for my newsletter where I talk about this one tiny segment of my business, the only people who are going to sign up for that newsletter are the people who are interested in that one tiny segment of your business. And if you chop that up, if you divide that up, if you do a different email list for 10 different segments, you're going to get 10 different lists of 10 different groups interested in 10 different things. This is some of the most powerful market research you could possibly do. You can build an inventory of names that exponentially expands the value of your spoken word content by doing this. Now, not everyone who's in podcasting, some of you just joined the podcast report, here on season 5, and welcome. You are going to walk away, if you listen, to a profitable podcast. Apple doesn't give you the email addresses. Stitcher doesn't give you the email addresses. Google doesn't give you the email address. You have to get the email address, and you do that by giving them something of value. Now, last episode 130, I gave you a giveaway. I told you to go to thepodcastreport.com/130 to grab it. And for that, I got your name and email address. Now, here in thepodcastreport.com/131, I'm giving you a funnel infographic that will help make better sense of this entire process that we're chatting about here. But you see what I'm doing? I'm giving things specifically away. Last week, I gave away a giveaway, a gift, a product, a cheat sheet about the podcast app in the new iOS release. That's a very specific segment. This week, I'm giving away the funnel worksheet, which is an entirely different segment. You want to do the exact same thing. Now, how do you do this? Some of you are proficient in collecting names and email addresses. God bless you. Go for it. I have been, again, in this for over a decade. I have seen dozens and dozens and dozens of ways to collect email addresses, ways to email your audience, things to do. I'm always curious, if I started over today, what would I do? Today, I would put everybody through ClickFunnels. And we had Russell on a couple of episodes back. We'll put the link to Russell in the show notes. ClickFunnels is pretty impressive. And what we've done is we've actually teamed with ClickFunnels to produce a funnel process for podcasts. So you can see that at thepodcastreport.com/130. You can see that at thepodcastreport.com/131. The next couple of episodes are going to be interviews, so there won't be giveaways, but past that, there will be some more. You can see the funnel that we use. And part of what ClickFunnels does is it lets you download it and use it. And if you got ClickFunnels, great, bring that right in. If you don't have ClickFunnels, not a problem. Attached to all this is a 14-day free trial, and you can take a look at it and go from there. That's what we've done, but let's talk about all the different ways to do it. Now, at the top, you want to template this process. You don't want to recreate every week. Every client I've brought in who's done this has a template, changes a couple things, and goes from there. I have got this ClickFunnels built, and I'm just changing a couple of things, and I'm going from there. You want a template. You want to change a few things, create it over and over again. Now let's chat about the ways to get an email address. Number one, visit a web page. This is my favorite. This is ClickFunnels. This is all the different options that are out there. They're on the phone. They're on a device. They visit the web page. You give them the email address. They give you the email address. You give them the giveaway. The list begins to get built. That one's easy. That one's my favorite. You can tell exactly what's there, the whole 9 yards. The next option is to send a blank email. This is a bit dated. This hasn't been used that much, but it's pretty easy. If you say send a blank email to, giveaway@paulcolligan.com, you set that up with an autoresponder. It's hard to miss that. It hasn't been used as much, but it's there. Texting in is another popular one. I'm not a big fan of texting in. Now, if you saw that at the beginning of the podcast report, you saw that I was playing with it. Well, the company who I was utilizing went, they got purchased and all sorts of crazy things happened. For all sakes and purposes, they went out of business as far as I'm concerned. And I don't have those phone numbers anymore. And so it's a mess. It's also, let's admit it, you sign up for an email and I can email you anytime you place anywhere. You don't get bothered. You're probably smart enough to have turned off the notifications on your phone. But if I take your phone number, now I can text you. Am I going to text you at midnight? Am I going to text you inappropriate times? And then they have the whole short code thing. In my experience, in my research, in my results, texting in is not my favorite. Web pages, favorite. Blank email, doable but outdated. Text in is the least of my favorite. So the podcast funnel tool, again, if you head out to thepodcastreport.com/131, you can see the process. You can download the worksheet of the process that I gave you. Basically, what you want to do before, and essentially before is come up with a plan, come up with a giveaway. Before I created the outline for this episode, I came up with a giveaway. Then there's the during part. And the during part is simply chat about it. And I've mentioned the podcastreport.com/131. And then there's afterwards. And afterwards is obviously give them the stuff that they've ordered, once it's come through. And then there's on publish. What do you do after you publish it? What do you do 30 days later? It is a infographic. It'll walk you through the whole process. Very happy about that. And then again, we've got the ClickFunnels free trial and the ClickFunnels that we're doing. You will probably see changes as this season progresses. And if we make any major changes, I will upgrade you in this episode. But /130 has it, /131 has it, and future ones will have it. I recommend it highly. One of the neat things about ClickFunnels is that you don't get an additional email system to come with it. You actually attach to an email sending service, which is kind of the new paradigm whereby which all this goes. So let's recap and let's talk some seriousness here. Selling on your podcast will always be hard to do. Sending someone from your podcast to sign up for an email will always be easier. And that process can be used to sell, to promote, do things later. And it's the path that I highly recommend. And remember, most people who sell on the podcast sell to the email address anyway that, sign up here for more information, that type of thing. Make it simple. Make it easy. Use your podcast to bring people onto the email. Use the email for the sales, and then use the podcast to continue to build rapport with your audience and do what it is that you're doing right now and what you're doing so well and what has brought people to your podcast. Now, in podcasting, again, over a decade, I've been doing this internet thing, for almost 25 years now. And I've had multiple email lists. I've had multiple email systems. I have too often chased the shiny object. Go with a system that you are going to be with for a while. Own the list. Go from there. Today, personally, I'd go with ClickFunnels. Unfortunately, I'm on some older systems. Moving from one system to another will get you in trouble. So I have some things on some other systems, but for this entire season, to show everybody what we're doing, we're going to stick with ClickFunnels. But find a place, stick with it. And then when it comes to mailing your list, there's two big things that you want to do when you mail your list. Number one, you want to mail them on a regular basis. Most of you get my Tuesday Heads Up newsletter called, get this, Heads Up Tuesday. Most of you get that, and that is a reminder that I'm there. That is a reminder that I'm going to email you. That is a reminder that Paul, is communicating with you somehow other than podcasting. Many of you are listening to this episode because the episode of the Heads Up Tuesday, I'm actually recording this on a Tuesday. The Heads Up Tuesday reminded you of the episode that you're listening to, and that's where this all gets to be fun. So email them on a regular basis. This reminds them, because think about it. If you sign up for something in January and the person doesn't email you back until June, you've got yourself a problem because people are wondering what's going on. They click you as spam. You get complaints. You have all those problems. Don't do that to yourself. That's number one. Number two, realize the nature of emails. Nobody, admit it, whenever you get a long email, what you do is you either delete it because you don't have time for it or you quote unquote file it away. Make your emails short, brief, and to the point. So use a system you can trust and you can go with for a long time. Email them on a regular basis so they know what to expect. And then when you send the emails, make them short. Now, a lot of people consider an email list sort of a badge of courage. These days, the badge of honor. These days, the badge of honor seems to be like Facebook followers or Instagram followers or people looking at you on Snap or that kind of thing. But there was a time when email addresses on your list was a big thing. Well, here's the thing that I don't want you to forget. There are two types of people in this world, just two. People who want to hear from you by email and people who don't want to hear from you by email. That's it. That's all there is. So if someone goes to the podcastreport.com/131, signs up to get the funnel infographic, and then I follow up with them, and then they click the unsubscribe button, here's the deal. They don't want to get email from me. They don't want to get offers from me. And I have two ways I can approach that. Number one, I can say, man, get all mad and get upset. I give them free stuff and they won't even give me an email. I could take that attitude. Or I could take the simple attitude that these people don't want to get email from me. When I switched over to the Heads Up Tuesday format, I actually found myself in a really weird situation where people would come to me and people would say, Paul, I love Heads Up Tuesday. Heads Up Tuesday is the only email newsletter that I follow. Thank you. Yes, I'm actually getting people who are saying that they want the email newsletter. So if you take an opt-in and someone leaves, ask why you left. Were you too annoying? Were there too many emails? Were you too frequent? There are such options there. But in the grand scheme of things, if this person doesn't want to get emails from you, this person's certainly not going to buy because they're getting emails from you. This person's certainly not going to feel good about you if they don't want emails from you and you send it to them. So if they leave, feel that is a cleaning of the process. Feel that as a refining and a better understanding of your audience, and you'll be in a much better place. On a future episode, we've got Jen Brinley from Congressional Dish, and we found out basically half of her audience got lost. She was actually happy about that. Coming in a future episode, I think you will appreciate that, but that's where you want to go. So, one of the big standards of podcasting, give great content on the podcast. I've done that here. Offer an opt-in whenever you can, thepodcastreport.com/131. And then use those email addresses to do further marketing, which I will do after having delivered the content. I've got a community at Facebook. If you go to thepodcastreport.com/131, I'll link to it. You have to click to get accepted, but we go in every couple of days and grab in people. Let's chat about this email thing. Take a look at the ClickFunnels that I've got for you. You can import it into your system. You can grab a ClickFunnels free trial if you want to see how this works, and we will go from there. But regardless of what happens, start collecting email addresses on your podcast. You, your podcast, your audience will be better for it. You have to build your list. I don't care how you do it. I don't care what tech you use, but you want to be able to reach your client base in a way that isn't just the podcast. I want you to head out to thepodcastreport.com/131 and see what I've got for you here. You might want to go back and listen to the episode I did with Ed Dale. I'll got a link to that at thepodcastreport.com/131, where we talked about the free cookie problem of podcasting. But you need another way to chat with your list. You need to give them something. It's valuable. It's profitable. I've seen it work time and time again. We've built a tool for you. If you don't have a way to do this, you need to do this. Thanks for listening. More next week. We love the social interaction here at the Podcast Report. Thepodcastreport.com/Facebook, thepodcastreport.com/Twitter, thepodcastreport.com/insert social platform of your choice. We'd love to hear from you. Love to give you the chance to interact with other listeners of the show. Another thing we'd love to have you do is simply subscribe to the show. If you know what that means, great. Head out to the podcatcher of your choice and subscribe to the show. If you don't know what that means, basically all the big programs, iTunes, Google, Stitcher, all of these platforms give you the ability to subscribe to the show like you'd subscribe to a magazine or a newspaper. And then the minute a new episode comes out, it comes to you automatically. It comes to you without worries about spam or that type of thing. And you don't have to visit the website. You don't have to go out to these platforms and see if there's something new. It comes to you automatically. Do that by subscribing. thepodcastreport.com/iTunes, thepodcastreport.com/TuneIn, thepodcastreport.com/Stitcher. You get the idea. Finally, last but not least, we do have an email address. It's thepodcastreport@outlook.com. We'd love to hear from you. Chat with you next week. Bye.